It's very important to understand, my dear, that miracles are not withholding themselves from you because you ask badly, or because you did not suffer enough, or because you did not repeat the prayer enough times in the right tone. No. Very often, what blocks the good is not the universe's unwillingness. It is the exhausted, pleading state inside the one who is asking. If you have been begging, bargaining, chasing, collapsing, checking, wondering whether you are worthy enough to finally be chosen by life, then of course your nervous system is tired. Of course your heart feels worn out. Of course your body feels like it is standing outside the door of its own good, knocking and knocking and knocking. But my darling, there comes a moment when you realize something very healing. You do not need to convince life to love you. You do not need to persuade the universe to be generous. You do not need to kneel emotionally before your own desire, as though what you want is too precious to come to someone like you. Miracles do not hate you. They hate desperation. Desperation shakes the hand. Desperation clouds the mind. Desperation makes you grip, chase, beg, force, and monitor the kitchen while the meal is still being prepared. But receiving is different. Receiving stands upright. Receiving breathes. Receiving knows that what is truly meant for you does not need to be dragged toward you by fear. So let me ask you something very softly, because this may change the whole inner posture of your life. What if you stopped begging and started standing like someone who is worthy to receive? What if you stopped pleading with life and started choosing with life? What if you said, I do not beg, I receive? Do you feel how the chest changes when you say that? Do you feel how the spine changes? My dear, you do not need to convince the universe. You need to change your inner position. All is well, and I am safe. This is why the difference between asking and ordering matters so much. Asking, in the wounded way most people do it, often comes from lack. It sounds like this inside. Please, let this happen. I hope I'm lucky enough. Maybe I won't get it. Maybe it's not for me. Maybe I'm asking too much. And because the body is speaking underneath the words too, the nervous system hears uncertainty. It hears fear. It hears not enough. It hears the trembling possibility of disappointment. So even while the mouth says, I want, the energy says, I doubt. And that state becomes exhausting because it keeps you emotionally crouched. But ordering is something else entirely. Ordering is clear. Ordering is clean. Ordering is calm. It is like going into a good restaurant and saying, this is what I would like. You do not run into the kitchen every 4 minutes to manage the stove. You do not grab the chef's arm and plead. You do not sit at the table sobbing, what if I never eat? No, darling. You choose. You trust the process. You remain available. You expect the meal to come because that is what the place is for. In the same way, life is not a stingy source you must beg to release one crumb of goodness. Life is abundant. Life responds. Life moves. The deeper question is not whether the good exists. It is whether you are willing to stand in the receiving state. Begging says, I am not sure I deserve. Ordering says, I have chosen. I am open. I receive. That is such a profound inner shift One is crouched, apologetic, emotionally starving. The other is clear, aligned, and quietly willing. And I am not asking you to become arrogant. I am asking you to become available. There is a very big difference. The begging self thinks worth must be proven. The receiving self understands worth is already present. So when you feel the old pleading energy rise, pause, straighten the spine, soften the jaw, open the palms, and say, I do not beg, I receive. I order my good, and I release the how. And then people ask, but how do I order my good? And it is really much simpler than the frightened mind would like to believe. First, be clear about what you are welcoming, but do not confuse clarity with control. You do not need to dictate every single detail, every exact path, every face, every timeline. That is where fear hides. Fear wants to manage the whole kitchen. The wiser self speaks in terms of essence, of feeling, of quality, of truth. I am open to joyful work and steady income. I welcome peaceful relationships. I choose health and ease. Do you hear the difference? Those sentences are clear, but they are not desperate. They name what belongs without strangling the form. Then comes the second step, and this one is so important because many people state what they want, but the body still whispers, not for me. So you must confirm worthiness, not loudly, not defensively, simply, steadily. I deserve all good. I am willing to receive. Life supports me. My dear, this is not permission seeking. This is inner alignment. This is the moment you stop saying, if I am lucky enough, and begin saying, I am available for what is good. The worthiness piece matters because without it, the order is sent and then immediately canceled by old shame. The mind says yes, but the body says no, and then the person wonders why they feel stuck. So let the worthiness become part of the order. Let your own system hear that you are no longer apologizing for wanting a good life. Then comes the third step, and this is where the whole thing either opens or closes. Release the how. Ah, my darling, this is where so many people become exhausted. They ask, they affirm, and then they clutch. They monitor, they force, they rehearse. They panic if nothing visible happens by Tuesday. But ordering means you choose and then you release the management of the invisible. You say, this or something better. You say, show me my next step. You say, it is done. Not because you are becoming lazy, but because you are refusing to do the universe's part with your nervous system. You do your part. You stay clear. You stay open. You take the next loving step when it appears, but you do not turn your mind into a surveillance machine for the unseen process. Ordering is not passivity. It is clarity plus worthiness plus release. That is how miracles enter more easily. They do not have to fight their way through your panic. They can land in an open place. And I think this is what changed everything for me, my dear. The moment I stopped using prayer like emotional begging and started using it like loving alignment. I stopped saying, please, 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 if I am good enough. And I started saying, this is what I welcome. I am willing to receive. Show me the next step. That is a very different nervous system, a very different body, a very different life, because the one who begs is always watching the door in fear. The one who receives is listening for guidance while living in trust. The one who begs keeps asking, what if it never comes? The one who receives says, this or something better. The one who begs tries to control the path because she does not trust herself to survive uncertainty. The one who receives says, I order my good and I release the how. My darling, that is not a small sentence. That is freedom. That is self-respect. That is spiritual maturity. So if today you have been kneeling emotionally before your own desire, rise. If you have been bargaining with life, stop. If you have been chasing miracles as though they are running away from you, pause. Put your hand on your heart. Open your other hand like someone ready to receive, and read this slowly, as though you are placing a new order into your own life with love and dignity. I do not beg, I receive. I deserve all good. I am willing to receive. Life supports me. This or something better. Show me my next step. It is done. All is well, and I am safe. Let that become your new posture, my dear. Not desperate, not collapsed, not apologizing, clear, open, receiving. And this is where it becomes very important, my dear, not to be frightened by what you still see. So many people begin changing inside, and then they look at the outside too quickly and say, nothing is happening, or worse, it is getting worse, and then they lose heart. But what you are often seeing is not the new signal failing. You are seeing the old signal echoing. You are seeing yesterday's vibration still moving through today's mirror. What appears in front of you now may be the residue of old fear, old shortage, old self-doubt, old pleading, old identity, old emotional weather. And because people do not understand this, they make one great mistake. They look at the echo and panic, and then panic becomes the next broadcast. They see the old result and call it the future. They see the old pattern and assume it is permanent. They see the mirror and think it is the source. But my darling, the mirror is not the source. The mirror is only reflecting what was already sent. That is why you must become very wise here. You must stop arguing with the residue as though it has authority over your new life. You must stop letting yesterday's emotional photograph tell you who you are becoming today. If you changed your inner position this morning, it does not mean the whole outer world must instantly rearrange before lunch to prove you are safe to continue. Sometimes the old wave still rolls in, even after you have stopped creating it. And when that happens, I want you to become very still and very clear. Look at what is in front of you and say, this is old residue. It has no power over me now. Again, with a softer jaw and steadier eyes, this is old residue. It has no power over me now. My dear, that is such a freeing sentence because it takes you out of reaction and puts you back into authorship. It says, I see this, but I am not giving it my future. It says, I understand that manifestation has momentum, but I also understand that momentum can change. It says, I do not need to create another cycle of fear just because an old one is still passing through. And this is why the mirror work matters so much here. Stand before the mirror, not to inspect your face like a worried critic, but to witness your own consciousness becoming stronger than appearances. Look into your eyes and say, "This is old residue. It has no power over me now." Feel what that does to the chest. Feel what it does to the spine. Feel what it does to the frightened mind that has been waiting for outer proof before it would allow inner peace. No, darling, you give peace first. You give the new signal first. You refuse to let the echo talk you out of your becoming. Do not react to the echo. Send a new signal. That is the whole turning point. That is where the one who used to beg begins to stand in creative partnership with life. You are no longer saying, "Please let the mirror change so I can calm down." You are saying, "I calm down and the mirror will catch up." That is maturity. That is faith with intelligence in it. That is the difference between being hypnotized by appearances and understanding spiritual cause and effect. And once you begin to understand that the old picture may simply be residue, then you are ready for one of the most powerful states of all. The state of it is done. My dear, this is not pretending. This is not fantasy. This is not lying to yourself and calling it spirituality. This is a nervous system shift. It is the holy moment when you stop standing over the seed you planted and digging it up every hour to see whether it has roots yet. It is the end of obsessive supervision. It is the release of anxious management. It is the heart stepping out of desperation and into completion. When you say, "It is done," you are not claiming you have already seen every outer detail. You are claiming that inside yourself, you are no longer vibrating like someone who thinks the good is uncertain, unavailable, or being withheld. You are saying, "I have placed my order. I have aligned my energy. I have chosen the state. I am no longer going to shake the system with panic just because the package is still in transit." That creates tremendous space, my darling. And miracles need space. Goodness needs space. Resolution needs space. The more you monitor, plead, chase, and strain, the more you fill the room with your own tension. But when you breathe out, lower the shoulders and say, "It is done. All is well. I receive now." Something extraordinary happens. The whole body stops interfering. The mind stops sending contradictory signals. The heart stops announcing lack every 15 minutes. And in that quiet, the good has somewhere to land. I want you to practice this very simply. One long exhale. Let the shoulders come down. Let the face soften. Open the hands slightly, as though you are no longer gripping the unseen. Then say, "It is done." Pause. All is well. Pause. I receive now. Read those 3 lines the way you would close a sacred letter, not the way you would argue with a doubting mind, because this state is not built through force. It is built through release. "It is done" means I am no longer emotionally postponing my own peace. "All is well" means I am no longer feeding the old emergency. "I receive now" means I am turning my cup upward. And perhaps this is where so many people miss the miracle, darling. They think their work is to keep proving how much they want it. But wanting has already spoken. At some point, the deeper work becomes allowing. At some point, the greatest act is not more effort, but less interference. At some point, you stop begging for evidence and begin resting in completion. This is not laziness, it is cooperation. It is you doing your part and then no longer trying to do the universe's part too. Miracle needs room. It is done creates that room. It takes you out of the vibration of not yet, not enough, not mine, and places you in the calmer, more magnetic atmosphere of readiness. Readiness does not tremble. Readiness does not perform. Readiness breathes. That is why the state of completion is so beautiful. It is not dramatic, it is deeply relaxed. It says, I trust the process enough not to keep bruising it with my fear. And from there, my dear, we arrive at something even more liberating. The understanding that what people call miracle is often not an exception to life's laws, but the natural result of aligning with them. This is what I mean by spiritual cause and effect. You are part of a living system. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your self-concept, your words, your choices, your emotional posture, all of these are variables inside that system. Change a variable and the system responds. Keep speaking to yourself as though you are helpless, unsupported, unworthy, doomed to repeat the past, and the system organizes accordingly. Begin loving yourself, begin choosing differently, begin speaking peace to your body, begin acting from worth instead of fear, and the system must start adjusting. Not because you are forcing life to break its own laws for you, but because you are finally working with the laws instead of against them. My darling, this should comfort you so much. You do not need to beg for the impossible. You need to become aligned with what is true. Love yourself. Speak well of yourself. Tell the truth. Choose kindly. Take the next fitting step. Stop feeding old programs. Refuse to call residue your destiny. Let your nervous system settle enough to receive guidance. This is not mystical in some faraway, inaccessible way. It is beautifully practical. A mind that is healthier makes wiser choices. Wiser choices change patterns. Changed patterns open new doors. New doors change outcomes. Peaceful people see options. Panicked people miss. Self-loving people stop accepting the crumbs that once kept the old suffering alive. Calm people hear intuition sooner. Present people notice timing more accurately. All of that looks like miracle from the outside, but from the inside it is often the logical fruit of a healed system. Miracle is not always an exception. It is often the natural consequence of inner order. That is why I keep bringing you back to the simple things. Love yourself. Choose better thoughts. Release the how. Speak the truth over your body. Act in ways that agree with what you say you welcome. That is spiritual cause and effect, not a magic trick, a living law. And once you understand that, you stop pleading with life to bend for you, and you begin bending your inner life back into alignment with what is already available. Then the whole atmosphere changes. The mirror shifts, the echoes fade, the new signal strengthens, and you begin to see, perhaps with surprise, that nothing was as random as fear made it seem. There was a system. There was a lawfulness. There was a path. There was a way your inner state and outer world were in conversation all along. So let me leave you here, very softly, with the sequence I would want to place in your heart when the old conditions still look unchanged and the frightened mind starts asking whether any of this is real. This is old residue. It has no power over me now. It is done. All is well. I receive now. Out of this situation, only good will come. Read it slowly. Let the body hear it. Let the nervous system settle into it. Let the system realign around it. Because, my darling, nothing is wasted, nothing is random, and nothing true is ever lost. The new signal is already being sent, and the mirror will answer. Have you ever noticed, my dear, how we can pray for something with one hand and choke it with the other? I say that with a smile and with love because so many of us do it. We say we want peace, love, healing, support, joyful work, steady income, a beautiful new chapter, and then we spend the whole day chasing, checking, pleading, rereading, panicking, tightening, and wondering if life has forgotten our address. It is exhausting, darling, truly exhausting. And that is why there comes a moment when you finally understand that begging is not devotion. Begging is strain. Begging is the frightened self trying to squeeze the future until it gives an answer. But the future does not open well under pressure. Life does not bloom beautifully under emotional choking. The good you want does not need your desperation. It needs your availability. It needs your clear welcome, your open hands, your calmer breath, your willingness to let it come in the right way. I do not beg, I receive. That sentence changes the whole posture of the body, does it not? It lifts the chest, it softens the jaw, it tells the nervous system, we are no longer kneeling before our own desire, as though we are too small for it. My dear, you may keep the vision, you may keep the intention, you may keep the holy clarity of what you welcome, but you must release the compulsive gripping. You must stop trying to manage the invisible with your fear. This is what surrendering the how really means. It does not mean giving up the dream. It means giving up the strangling. It means saying, yes, this is what I welcome, and I no longer need to wrestle the universe into delivering it on my timetable in my preferred wrapping. That is freedom. That is trust. That is the beginning of miracles arriving without having to fight their way through your panic. So when you notice yourself starting to plead again, starting to monitor again, starting to bargain with life again, stop, exhale, lower the shoulders, and replace the begging with one simple phrase. Thank you, it is being arranged in the best way. Do you feel the difference? One state says, I don't have it, I may never get it, I must chase harder. The other says, something is already moving. I can let life do its part while I do mine. My darling, that is not passivity, that is partnership. And this is exactly where the great identity shift begins. Begging always puts you beneath the thing you want. It puts you in the posture of someone who feels outside the circle, outside the blessing, outside the room where life is being generously arranged. Begging says, please, maybe, if I am lucky, if I am chosen, if I am worthy enough, but co-creation stands differently. Co-creation stands with the spine straight and the heart open. It does not stamp its feet like a spoiled child, and it does not collapse like a frightened one. It simply remembers, I am part of life. I am in relationship with life. I am not beneath it. I am not forgotten by it. I am not begging at the back door of the universe. My dear, that is such a profound shift, because once you stop seeing yourself as the abandoned one, the unlucky one, the overlooked one, the one who must plead for crumbs, your whole signal changes. The eyes change, the breath changes, the choices change, the standards change, the whole atmosphere around you changes. I claim my power. Read that slowly, not angrily, not like a performance, quietly, solidly. I claim my power. That does not mean you dominate life. It means you stop surrendering your inner authority to fear. Then say, I choose what I feed my mind. Ah, that is such a strong sentence, darling, because it reminds you that you are no longer required to feed every fearful image, every old program, every disappointing echo, every starving thought. And then the third sentence, so beautiful and so healing. I am a receiver of life's good, not a beggar, not a bystander, not someone watching blessings happen only to other people. A receiver, someone whose hands may open, someone whose heart may soften, someone whose life may finally stop saying, not for me. That is what happens when identity shifts. The world often does respond differently, but even before that, you respond differently. You stop chasing what dishonors you. You stop over-explaining. You stop performing worthiness. You stop kneeling where you were meant to stand. When you change identity, life changes conversation. It begins meeting a different you. So now, let us make this beautifully practical, because I never want to leave you with inspiration only. I want to leave you with something you can actually live. The first practice is the order script, and it takes only 2 minutes. Take a piece of paper, or speak it softly to yourself, and write one clear welcome sentence, one worthiness sentence, and one release sentence. I welcome joyful work and steady income. I deserve joyful work and steady income. This or something better. I let it come. Or I welcome peaceful love. I deserve peaceful love. This or something better. I let it come. Do you hear how clean that is? No pleading, no apologizing, no bargaining. Just welcome, worthiness, release. That is ordering. The second practice is the echo breaker, and I want you to use it all through the day. Every time you see something that looks like old evidence, old lack, old confusion, old delay, old disappointment, do not let it hypnotize you into broadcasting more of the same. Pause and say, old echo, new signal, that is enough. Such a tiny little line, and yet it breaks the trance. It reminds you that appearances may still be catching up. It reminds you not to create tomorrow from yesterday's residue. Old echo, new signal. Use it when the bill arrives, when the message does not come, when the old pattern shows its face, when the mind wants to say, see, Nothing is changing. No, darling. Old echo, new signal. And the third practice is the receiver practice. And this one is so important because many people say they want bigger blessings while still rejecting small ones. So once every day, receive one thing without deflecting it, a compliment, a little help, a small kindness, a small opening, a tiny opportunity, a gesture of support. Just let it land and say, thank you. That is all. No apology, no explanation, no throwing it back, because you train the system to receive big by first allowing it to receive small. My dear, you do not become ready for larger good in one giant leap. You become ready one little receiving at a time. One thank you, one softened hand, one unclenched jaw. One moment of not pushing the blessing away before it touches you. That is how the body learns. Oh, we really are becoming available now. And perhaps this is the deepest thing I want to leave with you today. Your life changes not only when the miracle arrives, but when your system finally becomes a welcoming place for the miracle to land. That is why these small practices matter. That is why the prayer changes from please, please, please to thank you. It is being arranged in the best way. That is why the identity changes from the wounded petitioner to the quiet co-creator. That is why the hand opens. That is why the spine rises. That is why the chest softens. Not because you are pretending the world is perfect, but because you are no longer making your own nervous system the place where the future gets strangled before it can even form. So if you feel yourself slipping back into the old pleading today, smile at it a little, be tender, then straighten your posture inwardly and begin again. I do not beg, I receive. All is well, and I am safe. I order my good, and I release the how. It is done. Again, my darling, slower now, deeper now, with more dignity in the body. I do not beg, I receive. I do not beg, I receive. I do not beg, I receive. All is well, and I am safe. All is well, and I am safe. All is well, and I am safe. I order my good, and I release the how. It is done. Let those words settle all the way in. Let them become your new inner posture. And if these words are meeting you right where you are, you do not need to make a big performance out of it. You might simply, gently, leave one line below as your own little order to life. I welcome. Not because the universe needs convincing, just because your heart is finally ready to speak clearly and receive beautifully.